Hey everyone, welcome back to the SOC Analyst L1 series, day 20. And today we are talk about basically the understanding of MITRA attack framework, one of the most powerful and widely used frameworks in cybersecurity. So as an SOC analyst, this is something like you will use every single day when analyzing alerts or creating detection rules. So that will be the today's session. In today's session we basically talk about the strategies you will use in order to use the MITRA framework, what is ATT and CK, what are the tactics, what are the techniques, some mitigations, detections, some of the examples, and how you will understand the framework better, and how you will use those techniques in your SOC environment. Okay, so as I'm seeing, like, the more people are joining right now. So hello Monica, hello Nikhil. uh, Nikhil is saying yes, 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 Nikhil, I am completing the series in this month. So you do not have to wait that much. Okay, so as some of people are still joining, so without further delay, let's start today's session. Okay, so first we talk about the framework. So first I'm going to show you the framework. So this is the framework, attack.mitra.org. Okay, so this is the framework web application. You can easily visit that application to basically understand everything. And here are multiple sections are there, like metrics, tactics, techniques, defenses, CTI, resources, or more things, right? If you scroll it down, you will see different metrics for different kinds of environment, like for an enterprise environment, for mobile and environment, and ICS, which is infrastructure control system. And then you will see the metrics of recurrence, resource development, initial access, executions, persistence, and so on and so on. But before moving on into this area, let's first talk about some of the basic things of this MITRA framework. So I'm going to start with the basics, like what is MITRA attack, ATT and CK. So this ATT and CK stands for adversarial tactics, techniques, and common knowledge. That means A means adversarial, T means tactics, the another T1 is techniques, and then and C, that means common, and K means knowledge. So when we talk about, or when we read about this framework, we called it as ATT and CK. So whenever someone is asking you of what is this framework, or what you will call out, so you will not pronounce it as attack. It is not an attack, it is adversarial techniques and common knowledge. Okay, and it is basically a huge knowledge base of attackers behave in real world attacks. It is created by MITRA corporation to help defenders like you, like me, to understand the attacker's behavior in a structured way. So that's why it is called as MITRA, ATT, and CK. Okay, so you will not pronounce it as MITRA or MITRA attack. You will pronounce is it right, like it is written MITRA, ATT, and CK. And in ATT ki CK, you will called it, or you will read it as adversarial techniques, and common knowledge. Okay, so this is how you will pronounce it, and it is some of the basic knowledge of the framework. Okay, it is widely used in SOC operations, threat hunting, as well as red team. So this framework is not only helping you in blue team, It also helps the researchers in red team also. So if you are uh, learning the pen testing part, the another field of cybersecurity, or if you are learning the defending part, basically the defensive part or offensive part, so this particular framework will help you in both scenarios. It will help you in SOC operations, it will help you in threat hunting, as well as it will help you in red teaming as well. So it doesn't matter like what industry or what particular domain you are into in cybersecurity, you will use it. Okay. Now, moving on, why this framework is matters for SOC. So as an SOC analyst, we basically or we constantly monitor and respond to alert. As you are attending these sessions from day 1 to day 20, so it's obvious like you will get the idea like what we do as an SOC analyst. So our primary task is to monitor and respond to alerts, right? Whatever alerts you are getting it via your SIEM tools or via any other tools you are using. So this particular framework will help you to map each alerts. You can map every alert to a specific attacker techniques. So instead of just seeing some random alerts, you know why it is happening and how it fits into the bigger picture. So it basically gives you an idea like why this attack is actually happened, and the purpose of this attack, what attacker is trying to do here with that attack. Okay, so it basically helps you to build better detection rules according to the scenario. You can create some better detection rules, improve your incident response processes, and communicating your findings across red, blue, or the intel teams. Okay, so it basically acts as a common language across blue team, red team, or management team. It can help you to create better detection rules, it can improve your incident responses, or you can map everything. You can map alert, you can map logs to adversarial techniques. Okay, you may be here of one more chain, which is cyber kill chain. I hope everyone hears this term cyber kill chain. So you might have heard of that term cyber kill chain, so which basically explains the attack stages like the reconnaissance, the weaponization, or the payload delivery, right? So when we are talk about the cyber kill chain, so we talk about the reconnaissance phase, we talk about the weaponization phase, we talk about the exploitation phase, and then we talk about the payload delivery, then maintenance, the phases of basically an attack, right? But this framework, the MITRA, ATT, and CK framework, that goes deeper. It breaks each stage into hundreds of real world techniques and sub techniques. As you are seeing here in this framework, there are multiple techniques listed for every possible scenarios, right? If you scroll it down, you will see multiple techniques, right? And I'm just listed the metrics. The techniques are here, and the tactics are here, the defenses are here, the CTI are here, the resources. So you can read this particular framework as an knowledge factory, right? This is a resource for your complete knowledge about the attack. Okay, so the cyber kill chain is basically give you uh, a big foot view, but this particular framework gives you a microscopic view. As in simple words, if I break it down, like whenever you are breaking the cyber kill chain, so you basically knows about uh, the bigger things, but using the this framework, you can see those attacks, those alerts, those techniques in a small view, like microscopic view. You can see every small things. So this is how these differentiation happen between those two frameworks. Then, if we talk about the ATT and CK structure, so in this structure, there are five main components, which is tactics. That means the advisory technical goals. That means the why. Why this attacker or what the attacker wants to achieve. Why this attack happened. Why why the attacker launched this particular attack. So the tactics you want to know in the like what attackers thinking in their mind, what attacker wants to achieve using that particular attack. So tactics means this. Then techniques. So technique means how the attack is executed. Like the attacker wants to do something, but how this is even possible, how the attacker use some techniques to launch that attack, how the attacker use some techniques to execute that attack. So how will cover in this particular technique component. Then sub techniques, that means more specific details of how exactly it is done, how exactly your attack happened in your system. You can see with the help of sub techniques. Okay. Then we have mitigations. Mitigation means what defenders can do to prevent it. So as it is obvious, you know about mitigation. So that means how the blue teamers, how the SOC analyst, how the response team will basically handle the thing, the attack, and how defenders can do to prevent it. Then detection. That means how we can detect it in the log, how to spot the technique, how you can basically identify that particular alert or particular attack in the logs. So basically this particular structure will help you to move from theory to practical detection. Okay, now you can or now I will talk about the some of the tactics. So as you are seeing on the platform, on the framework, there are multiple things like initial access, executions, persistence, privilege escalations, defense evasion, credential access, discovery, lateral movement, collection, command and control, exfiltration, or impact. There are 12 tactics we have. If I show you there, suppose I click on mobile, so we have those tactics: reconnaissance, resource development, initial access, execution, persistent, privilege escalation, defense evasion, credential access, discovery, lateral movement, collection, command and control, exfiltration, or impact. Okay, some of the description is also there. So these all are the tactics, and you can read it here also. Like here written is tactics represent the why of an uh, attack, technique, or sub technique. It is the advisory technique, tactical goal, the reason for performing an action. For example, an advisory may want to achieve credential access. Okay, so suppose if I click here, so you can read further. Like in the techniques, in the tactics, or in the enterprise section, there are three sections basically: for enterprise, for mobile, or for ICS, right? So I am using right now, the tactics are same. If you like scroll for mobile tactics, if you want to see the mobile tactics, so these are the mobile techniques tactics: initial access, execution, and persistence. And then if you want to see the ICS, so the ICS tactics are listed here, right? So I'm going to show you the tactics for enterprise, because all of the tactics are the name are the same, but might be the attack scenario will be different. Okay, so in enterprise level I click on reconnaissance. So reconnaissance means collecting the information. So it is written here like the advisory is trying to gather information they can use to plan future operations. And then some things about the reconnaissance, and then the techniques. Like what techniques attackers can use to perform the reconnaissance. So there are some techniques like active scanning, and then in active scanning there are sub techniques like scanning IP blocks, vulnerability scanning, or word list scanning. Then active scanning means like it may execute active reconnaissance scans to gather information that can be used during targeting. Active scans are those where the advisory probes victim infrastructure via network traffic, as opposed to other forms of reconnaissance that do not involve direct interaction. So here you will get an idea like if attacker are planning to do some attack, then what is the attacker's goal to launch that particular attack, what is their objective, and then you can read about the sub techniques. So in active scanning there are some sub techniques which is scanning IP blocks. So advisories may scan victim IP blocks, right? If you are familiar about the subnetting or the IP, or how IPs how IP will be distributed in the network, so you can basically scan not a single IP but the whole IP block. Like if you are scanning a larger organization though, so they might be having not only single IPs but they have a lots of IPs. Okay, so that's why you have to understand like what IP block is. So it may scan the victim IP blocks to gather information that can be used during targeting. That means when the attacker is launching the attack, so it can scan the whole IP blocks to collect the information. Public IP addresses may be allocated to organizations via block. So if you are familiar with any computer search engine like Shodan or Census, so you can basically capture or you can basically find out the IP blocks of any organization, right? So the IP blocks that are allocated to organizations by block a range of sequential addresses, right? Then vulnerability scanning, so the attacker can scan victims for vulnerabilities that can be used during the attack. Vulnerability scans typically check if the configuration of the target or maybe host or applications potentially aligns with the target of a specific exploitation that advisory may seek to use. And then the word list scanning, that means a dictionary attack or brute force attack, or any specific basically any specific word list to perform that attack. Then we have another technique which is gather victim host information. So what is host? Where attacker is basically, sorry, the victim is host their target, so that is host. So the attacker wants to collect that information. So the host information might be the hardware information, the software information, the firmware information, the client configuration, right? And then victims identify identity information, then credentials, email addresses, employee names. So basically in this whole framework there are multiple tactics. And if we already talk about like what is a tactics, so why? So basically if the attacker is launching the reconnaissance techniques, reconnaissance tactics, so what is their goal? Why basically the attacker launch the reconnaissance? Okay, so in this particular framework or using this particular framework, you can read out, you can understand the attacker's objective, like why the attacker is basically launching that particular attack. And it's when you basically understand the attacker's goal, then you can basically implement the more safest patterns in your SIM tools for detecting those alerts. Okay, and suppose if I not only about suppose if I visit the tactics for mobile, so let me switch to the mobile, and then suppose if I choose uh, initial access. Okay, so in initial access tactics, we have application versioning, drive-by compromise, exploitation for initial access, lock screen bypass. So that means like with physical access to a mobile device, may seek to bypass the device lock screen, right? Basically, it is only available in mobile devices when you have or lock out your phone. So using the physical access, we can bypass, or we can uh, open the lock screen, or we can bypass the device lock screen. So several methods are there. Then phishing, SIM card swap. Hopefully you heard about those attacks or those techniques here and there. Then supply chain compromise, right? And if I show you some of the ICS techniques, so basically infrastructure control system. So here are those tactics. Okay, so using that framework, it will basically helping you to understand the attacker's goal. Why the attacker needs to launch that attack. Then if you move around with the section techniques, then you will know how basically that purpose is, or how the attack is basically launched. So if I visit the technique section and go to enterprise, then again the reconnaissance, and then you will see like how it is basically achieved. Okay, and you can basically read those things in a matrix view as well. So in reconnaissance, we have 10 techniques. In resource development, we have 8 techniques. And here are active scanning, then the different techniques, tactics, and then sub techniques as well, right? So these are the three sub techniques, which is these. Then you can read about a example, the mitigations, and the detection. So how you can detect the active scanning in your SIM tools. So you have to create a detection rule according to this. So network traffic content or network traffic flow, that is the data source, which is network traffic. So if you want to detect the active scanning attack in your organization, right? So suppose an attacker launch the active scanning, it doesn't matter what he is actually doing. If it is scanning the vulnerability, or if it is using the word list based scan, or if it is scanning the whole IP block with the tool and map, or some other, but you want to detect it, whenever the attacker launch that attack using some tool or using some script, or in manual way, your SIM tool basically detects it and alert you. So you have to create a detection rule in the SIM tool, and how to detect it. So the data source will be your infrastructure, or your application, or your server's network traffic. Okay, and how to create that rule. So you have to create the rule according to this. So analyze the traffic patterns, packet inspection associated to protocols that do not follow the expected protocol standards, and traffic flows, right? Consider correlation with process monitoring, command line to detect anomalous processes executions, command line arguments associated to traffic patterns. So that's how you can basically plan it. So in order to create perfect detection rules for every techniques, there are multiple techniques, as you are seeing here. Like we have 12 main components, not 12, but or maybe more, maybe less, but according to structure, like if you have an enterprise structure, if you have a mobile structure, so whatever you have, according to the technique, tactics, if you read about all those things, you can better plan it. You can basically create more specific detection rules to detect your attack which is launched by the attacker. So there are multiple things available here. You can read it out. You can read it out for recurrence. Like there are 10 techniques. I already, like in this particular thing I talk about the active scanning, but there are more. There are like the victim network information, victim organization information, phishing for information, closed sources, open technical databases, open domain, open websites, right? And this is the information phase. So if you want to block it, if you do not want to disclose that information to the attacker whenever they launch the recurrence technique, so you prevent it by creating a detection rule in your SIM tool. But if you suppose you are created those rules, but you want a more secure environment, like you are seeing some these things in real life also. Whenever you are about to launch some heavy scan on your target, I'm not talking about the low level websites, but highly secure ones like the Google, like Microsoft, or maybe the organization which takes security as their high priority. So you see, you commonly observe that, like whenever you do something as a tester, right? I'm not talking about in the perspective of the defenders, but as the offensive testers. So whenever they do something, so their IP got blocked, they might not receive the responses from the target, from the organization. So how this basically happened? So their SOC team designed better detection rules. Okay, so whenever you are basically trying to perform those things, you might get blocked, your request may be filtered, or the server is not particularly responding you. So if you are not receiving it, then how you will basically launch or initialize your further steps? So you can, if you want to prevent everything, so there are these main components and every common techniques. If you are the cyber, if you are reading about cybersecurity domain, so I hope you are basically seeing those things very often, seeing those attack very often, like the credential access, what is lateral movement, what is defense evasion or privilege escalations or persistence or executions or further or more, right? What is exfiltration, what is impact? So this framework will basically gives you a complete mapping of every attack that will be launched by the attacker, why, how, and how to basically create rules. What is your data sources? What type of rule you have to create to detect that attack? Okay, so there are multiple metrics. In this particular platform, you will find a lots of data, like the enterprise, and then in enterprise sections there are categories like for Windows, for Mac OS, right? For Linux, for cloud, and then in cloud also there are categories for Office suite or for identity provider, SaaS or S, the network devices, the containers. So basically, this particular platform, this particular framework has a lots of data that you need to understand before creating a rule. Basically, it gives you something like, whenever you, as an SOC analyst, you want to create some rules, you want to detect some attack, so you will understand like why the attack should be launched or how the attack can be launched. Okay, so in this particular tactics overview, in this particular tactics, you will understand like the goal of an attacker during different phases of an intrusion, initial access, or all others, right? Every single attack that is launched by the attacker uses some combination of these tactics. Okay, so these are the 12 main tactics, but there are more maybe. Now let's talk about one particular tactics. You can take this as an example. I already talk about that, but let's break it down more. So in the initial access phase, the attacker is basically trying to get into the system. Okay, so the goal of the attacker is to how to control your system, or how to get entry into the system or in the network. Okay, so the techniques are phishing, or drive-by compromise, the exploiting public facing applications like the web application or the mobile application, or any using APIs, or using iOS applications or cloud applications. So if you are a SOC analyst, you will check for what you will check for. You will check for suspicious login attempts, email with attachments, or some exploit attempts in web logs. So you will get that idea when you read about those techniques. So you will get the idea like what attackers can do. Like, this is the goal. So the how the attacker is basically achieving that by launching the login attempts, fake login attempts, the brute forcing the panel, or sending some emails, or exploiting in your web application. So to protect that, you need to create rules. So whenever attacker is basically launch those things, your tool basically according to your rule can create an alert, and then you can investigate further and take proper mitigations to block that attack. Okay, let's take one more example like executions. So suppose the attacker is already inside in the system. Somehow attacker compromised your system. So once they are inside, the attacker is basically wants to execute malicious codes. Common techniques including the PowerShell scripts, the command line interpreters, or some malicious executable codes, right? So as an SOC analyst, you will look for PowerShell command logs or script execution events. Like the event ID is basically the 4104 in Windows, right? If I take one more example like the persistence, so the persistence means if an attacker is already compromised in your system, and then attacker basically wants to stay on the system even after reboot or log out. Attacker basically compromised your system, but they want to be persistent. Suppose if the environment goes shut down, or maybe the logout or the reboot, so basically attacker will lose their access, but they do not want to. They want to be persistent, so that's why they use this tactics. So the techniques are to do that particularly is they might use registry run keys, schedule tasks like the cron tabs or cron jobs, or new services creation. They might create some new services. So as an associate analyst, you will monitor the auto runs, the task scheduler logs, or the registry modifications. So basically, this particular framework gives you the whole idea about every possible attack in your enterprise, in your mobile, or in your ICS infrastructure. You will get the idea about tactics, the techniques, and according to that, you can plan your uh, detection rules or mitigation rules. So that's how this particular framework is that much important. Most people, what they think, like, this is, yeah, this is a let it go, this is theory, this is theory, but this is not just theory. It gives you the basic initial knowledge for every possible attack that can happen in your organization, in your on your applications, on your cloud servers, on your web servers. And as an SOC analyst, it's your job to protect that. And to protect that, you need to create rules. And if you do not have any idea about like how this attack can happen, so what type of rule you will create. So that's why these frameworks, this particular framework is very important. I love that framework. It has a very good amount of information about every attack. Okay, so how this particular uh, framework will help you. So as an SOC analyst, as we already talk about, like in real SOC operation, the MITRA framework will basically helps the analyst to map every alert to known techniques, like the suspicious PowerShell, like in executions, or RDP brute force login for initial access, or it basically helps you to write some detection rules. You can use this particular framework for threat hunting as well. Like it is a great tool for threat hunting. You can take one technique like credential dumping and build a hypothesis. For example, like are attackers trying to access any LSASS memory? Then you hunt through the logs or EDR data for related indicators. So this framework gives the structure for your hunting process as well. And if we talk about the real world tools, so many enterprise basically already integrate this framework like the Splunk or QRadar or Elastic, or maybe the Microsoft Sentinel. So they all map detections to according to the ATT and CK IDs. Threat intel feed also use these IDs to classify attack data. Even red team tools like Atomic Red Team or Caldera use these particular framework. Okay, so that is the information we need to know about ATT framework. So I hope you will get a lot of uh, lots of idea using that framework, or why this framework is important and how to use it. So Nikhil is asking me like what is written in the brackets. So suppose if I open any techniques and oh, where is the bracket? I think you talk about the metrics. Suppose active scanning. Where is the bracket? These are the IDs. I'm not seeing any bracket here. These are the IDs, like the tactics IDs. Uh, so you can take a screenshot and send me to the Telegram so I can answer better over there. You can also learn about the data sources as well, right? So there are different data sources like the assets or the containers or the firewall or the firmware, right? So you can check out all the data sources, then resources. So you, if you want to learn more about this particular framework, you can use this. So there are multiple techniques for different attacks. So you cannot cover this all this in like 1 or 2 day. You need to read about everything, every attack pattern, the techniques, every techniques. Like these are the common tactics, but there are multiple techniques and sub techniques. So to create a better rule, you need to understand everything, and that's why the attacks are happened in the organization, because they are not particularly filtering for every technique. They are just using, or they are filtering some common attacks, but there are some more attacks which they have to use, or they have to filter, or they have to create some detection rules. Okay, so now you can read that platform, and I will see you in the next session. You can check out the resources. I've updated the drive with all the session slides. The session tracker is also updated. You can uh, connect me on the Telegram for any doubt or discussion. You can join my WhatsApp communities. You can check out the member only videos. Basically, I uploaded some member only videos. So if you are interested in the uh, network penetration testing, so I uploaded the whole series, but you can only watch it in the if you are the member of the channel. So there you can watch it. You can watch the bug bounty series. These all videos are of member only, and you can check out the bob suit series as well. This is live and free. And I'm also planning to launch the penetration testing series as well in upcoming days. So if you like the video, make sure you will like it. If you haven't subscribed it yet, subscribe. And if you have any query or comment, do not hesitate to drop it. I will see you in the next session. Till then, okay. So I have some few questions. Uh, Whenever I going through the chat. So the one question I got is like, if we are able to start applying for SOC analyst job if we have attended class till now. Yes. So basically, if you are watching the whole 20 videos, so you will get the idea about your job. But you need to perform some practical part also, like the installation of any SIM tool, or creating some basic rules. But when you apply for some companies and work for their environment, so according to the environment, you can better plan for the rules, and uh, according to the environment you will receive the alerts or logs, so you can analyze it. But you will get the much idea like what you have to do as an SOC analyst. So yes, you can apply it. Nikhil is asking internship kahan se milegi. So Nikhil, there are few places which you can apply as for internship role. Go through the LinkedIn, search there. You will definitely you will find it. Or if you are not able to find something, then you can ping me on Telegram, so I can refer you somewhere. Welcome, Shri Bhuvan. I'm not particular seeing any more comments, so thank you. The Chitra Katha, whatever your name are, welcome. Okay, so I'm going to end the session here because I have a new session which is scheduled about Burp Suite. So if you are interested in learning the Burp Suite, so you can join in next few minutes. Take care, bye bye. See you on the next session, day 21. Good night. Bye bye.